views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to Bronxtalk. Hey there, Happy New Year. Tonight's guest is a photographer of everyday Bronx scenes. He calls it Wandering New York. Interestingly enough, I looked up to see when was the last time he was on our show, and it turns out he was on right at New Year's last year. So we're developing a nice little habit here to check in with photographer Joe Raskin, who wanders New York and the Bronx, of course, and takes photos of everyday sorts of things that we might not quite see in the way that he photographs them. So it's a perfect way to launch us into the new year, 2017, in the Bronx, to get a nice look at our borough through the lens of a photographer who wanders New York and the Bronx. So stay with us. Should be fun. If you have questions or comments about the photos or anything you hear on tonight's show, send an email to us at bronxtalk@bronxnet.org. You can post them on our Facebook page or send us a tweet to @BronxTalk, and we'll read them on the air during a future edition of our program. For the here and now, maybe we should learn to play Dion's The Wanderer for our guest. That's a Bronx song. He is wandering the Bronx, wandering New York, photographer Joe Raskin. Hi.
Hi, Gary. Happy New Year to you.
And thank you.
And that was one of my inspirations for the title for the website. Was,
really?
Was Dion's song. So
there you go. Well, you are the Wanderer. Let's just, for people who didn't see our show last year, let's talk about you. When did you start taking pictures, and then how did you get this idea that taking pictures of, frankly, buildings was really something dramatic?
I saw it a number of years ago. It was just something that I've always had cameras in my family. My dad was taking pictures all over the place, mostly family pictures.
Right.
But it was just something I always wanted to do. That at first as a avocation. Now it's now that I'm retired, it's sort of a job. Although not a paying job, but just something that I have the time to do everything.
Now, do you go out every day? I mean, I see, frankly, you can see him on Wandering New York on Facebook, and of course his website. But there's a lot of stuff, and you know, I'm just looking through the usual stuff that comes up. But then I say, oh wow, look at this! Here's another picture of the Bronx. Do you go out every day?
I try to get out every day. Obviously the weather it's weather dependent, but I try and get out every day. Get pictures of one place or another. And ideally, I'm in every borough each day of the week.
Every borough each day.
I mean, each one borough a day.
One borough a day. See, of course, I and presumably our viewers are very into the photos of the Bronx. So essentially, 1/5 of the photos are of the Bronx.
Pretty much, yes.
How many photos do you shoot? Now, unlike taking photos of people, you don't have to have people. I mean, the buildings are there. So do you shoot a lot of photos, or do you just go to one scene? And give us an idea of what you're thinking about.
It's one of the benefits of digital photography that I can take a lot of pictures.
Well, of course, yeah.
In the days when I was shooting with 35mm film, I had to budget myself, I guess. But now, if on some days I'm out there, and I try to hit a couple of neighborhoods in a day, not just one neighborhood. I'll wind up taking up to between 70 or 100 shots.
Wow! And you see, I see the one we see the one or two that are excellent. What do you look for? I mean, you're going to see, folks. If you haven't seen Joe's work, you're going to see, wow, this is like a building I might have seen all the time, and now here's a new look at it. When you come upon a neighborhood or whatever, you know, an area of the Bronx or a park or a building, what do you look for that makes you say, this is a photo?
It's just something that grabs me on the spur of the moment. I try not to plan out. Sometimes there are shots that I have in mind there's a couple pictures I'll always take. There's a picture along Pelham Parkway by Kruger Avenue by the apartment houses. There's like a back alley between there and White Plains Road, which is a lot of fire escapes. I don't have it here, but it's just like every time I'm in the neighborhood, I get that shot.
And how many different neighborhoods you go to? So you, again, we'll use the Bronx as an example. So okay, Thursday, today's the day you're going to the Bronx. Do you just say, well, now I'll just go to one neighborhood, or do you? And I know you're a subway guy, so you do it all on foot and you do it on our trains.
Or buses. Or
buses, okay.
Yeah.
So mass transit guy would be more.
I try to do more than one neighborhood just to give myself some variety. So if I get off number 2 train at Pelham Parkway or the number 5 train at Pelham Parkway, I'll hit the area around on both sides of Pelham Parkway, and then swing up further into Alton or Williamsbridge, or go south into Morris Park and Van Ness. I want to hit more than one neighborhood, just for variety's sake.
And all on foot.
All on foot.
All on foot. So once you get to a neighborhood, and then you'll go all on foot. So you must be. I mean, there's a fitness thing too. You must be in pretty good shape. Do you know how many miles you log?
Usually, usually back 3 or 4 miles. Sometimes up to around 6 or 7 miles.
Wow.
It depends. Again, it depends on the weather. Depends on how much daylight I have. Everything else like that. My cardiologist is thrilled with it, actually.
Well, listen, we're all thrilled, Joe.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it. And do you plan out the routes? Do you say to yourself, okay, so I'm going to go use the Pelham Parkway area, or I'm going to go into Highbridge today, or I'm going up to Wakefield, and so I'm going to do that? Or do you literally, I guess the title is Wandering New York, wander around and find yourself, I'll go this street or I'll go that street?
Generally speaking, I have a starting point in mind. I don't have an end point in mind. So it just depends on where inspiration takes me. And a lot of times I'll think of going one way, and then all of a sudden I see something else in another direction. No, I'll go over that way.
You, I'm guessing, would know every good lunch place in the borough of the Bronx in every neighborhood. And I guess along with that, I would have to ask, do you spend all day? Is it a 2 or 3 hour thing? How does it work?
Again, it depends on the time of the year. I try to get out and around by after 1, maybe 1 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock or so, and then to see how much energy I have.
And of course, how much lighting. I mean,
that's correct.
You certainly wouldn't do nighttime, because these are all daytime photos.
Not that much. I mean, once in a while I'll do a nighttime shot if something appeals to me.
And you at least what you publicize is not people. I mean, we're of course enthralled with the people of the Bronx, but you don't. Do you shoot people and we just don't see them, or you really are just interested in the landscapes and the buildings and our
I'm more interested in the landscapes and the people than the people. No offense.
Interesting.
With no offense to the people of the Bronx or any place else in the city. If people show up, they're sort of on the periphery of the shot. If somebody's right out in front, I'll wait till they go by.
Now, these photos we're going to look at, these are all from this year, and you had told me when you sat down, some of them are actually very recent.
This from the last year. There'll be a couple of shots that you'll see that I took in the last week or so, or the last 2 weeks.
I'm going to make this editorial comment, and then we're just getting ready to take a look at the pictures. I get the sense from having watched the ones last year that the photography is getting better. Do you feel like, wow, I'm really developing this style, or is that just me because viscerally
I just think it's evolving. The more I do it, the more it appeals to me to do it better. Do it better. Looking back at some of my older shots, I could see that there were some pictures that I took and posted that I would not.
You would not do today.
I would not do today.
Do you go back to the same place and say, I could do this one better?
Sometimes, yeah. There are some shots that I'd like to do over. Although if I'm out there, I'm taking it and it doesn't work, I give up after a certain point. I'm not. I don't take like 20 pictures of the same subject.
It would be fun, I suppose. You've got to get your walking shoes on to wander around with you one day. Do you think if you did that would inhibit what you do?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty much of a lone wolf, but
clearly,
yeah. But it's if I at some point I'm going to wind up going around with other people. But it's just
interesting.
I think I'm not sure if it would interfere or be almost like a competition as to who could take the better shot.
I would love to have you, for example, take a group of kids, take a group of high school kids. One last thing before we do it, because I'm ready. I know we're hyping it up and we haven't shown the pictures yet. Do you use everyday camera equipment? Do you use fancy camera equipment? What do you, do you use? A little cell phone?
I use both a regular camera, a Pentax X5, and I use my Samsung Galaxy 7 phone. It depends on. Some pictures are better with the big camera. Some pictures are better with the phone. The Pentax is actually the digital version of the 35 millimeter camera that I've used in the past.
And a fancy lens, or just like the standard lens?
A zoom.
Just a simple zoom.
Yeah.
Lens, right. All right, we ready? Are we ready? Who's in there? Brianna's ready to show us some pictures. What do we have now? So we're going to start off. Where is this?
That's Bronx Park East. That's right across from the park. It's a little bit above Pelham Parkway. There are a number of houses in that area that always appeal to me.
And I would tell you that I chose this one for first because this is a somewhat typical Bronx scene. And you know what I like as you look at this photo? It's a combination of the shadow of the trees and the trees, and they seem to blend together. So you can almost not distinguish between whether it's a tree or the shadow.
It wouldn't work as well earlier in the year. This is like a late in the year shot with the shadows like that.
Okay, so this is Bronx Park East, maybe between Allerton and Pelham Park.
Yes, yes.
Wow, I nailed it. All right.
Yeah.
Number 2.
This is Pelham Gardens. This is a neighborhood that I was not that familiar with when I first started doing these pictures. I'm more a little bit oriented towards the Allerton area, a little bit further up, and this is a wonderful neighborhood to explore.
To explore, and also again, to me, and you know, Joe had given me just for the audience, I had taken maybe he sent me maybe 30 pictures, and I edited them out and took half of them. This to me was interesting because it's a private house, but look at the architecture, how distinctive.
Very, very Bronx. There's no other way. No other way to describe it.
Well,
you see some of this in the other boroughs, but not as much.
I would add that it reminds me. My cousins grew up in Fresh Meadows, Queens, and I think there were some houses of this sort in Fresh Meadows.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the next.
This is Schuylerville.
This I just love.
This to me is even more classic Bronx architecture. The extra work that went into the brickwork, you don't see it that much. You see it much less elsewhere than you see it around here.
Really, in the Bronx, and you would know, of course, since you traverse the borough. Obviously the design in the brickwork is just. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's original. It's like not only did an architect design it, but an artist designed it.
You can see a lot of love went into it. There's no other way around it.
You feel it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep rocking.
This is.
Okay, this we're going to spend a little time with.
This is the number 6 train. This is looking towards the Morrison Avenue station. Going towards Manhattan. This is an example of what I'll do with the zoom effect. That you don't see this that much up close when they're in person. But the way that the hilly aspects of the borough go, it's like almost like a roller coaster.
There are I mentioned to Brianna, who's our director, before the show as we were just reviewing the photographs, that this to me is such a Bronx scene because I mean you could look at the tracks and really you capture the kind of the curvy tracks, which I guess you don't realize when you're riding the trains, and then. Beyond it is like a Bronx neighborhood. I mean, to the left you can see the graffiti. I mean, I think it's an extraordinary photo. What were we going to say?
No, it's the surrounding. When I take a picture of an elevated subway, I want it in the context of the neighborhood that's in.
And so let's just remember where you said was the number 6 train.
This is the Morrison Avenue station.
Morrison Avenue. This train was pulling into the station. Yeah, I'm staying with it for a couple of seconds because I just love it. And even, things to notice, which again, if you're standing and waiting for the train, of course now in the cold or whatever, you look and you don't notice like the little purple or magenta square that's in the top left or the bright green a long sign, I guess, that's one of the parts of the station. Is that it's hard to say. It's just, Joe, congratulations for this. I think everybody in the Bronx would look at this and say, this is our home. What can I tell you? All right, let's go next. Joe's already tired of it. But
No.
now this I have to say, this was, you left the Bronx, and this was a small town like in South Carolina, and you took a picture of like a little church.
But this is BronxNet.
This is BronxNet.
And I didn't even notice it. To be honest with you, I didn't notice until now the big solar panel up on the roof. Which is
Wow!
So it's like
that's very good.
Yeah. So that the person who owns that house is being very environmentally aware, but at the same time, it's an old house.
For those of us who have traveled maybe to small towns in America, you have driven past, little. I see this as like an intersection in the middle of
Very much so.
nowhere, like a farm in Maryland or something. And that's why, why I love the photos, and I love showing them on New Year's, so we get a look at our borough and say, wait a minute, we've got some, extraordinary places that aren't what people normally think of in the borough of the Bronx. All right, let's keep going. What do we got? This, by the way, I view is in the same category. This, of course, he went to Mexico City and took a picture of. It's extraordinary.
This is so unique to the city in general. I mean, this is University Heights, a little bit above
University Heights,
a little bit above Fordham Road, and this whole block is very
I'm
very
trying
interesting.
to think of where. Do you remember what street that is?
I think Andrews Avenue, but I'm not sure.
Andrews Avenue.
But it's between University Avenue and Sedgwick Avenue.
Between University Avenue, and you're saying north of
Fordham Road.
pardon me,
South of Fordham Road.
south of Fordham Road.
South Fordham Road.
So that would be like up the hill or past the church.
Yeah.
And somewhere back there.
Below the park. That's
And but again, the architecture and it's got the kind of that Spanish roof overhang. Just an extraordinary photo. That's the kind of thing I'm assuming you come across and you say, "Wow, look at this! This is so different."
I actually was, before I took the picture, was just standing there and looking at it for a few minutes. I just couldn't.
Really?
It was so, for any part of the city. This is so out of the blue. Not just the Bronx.
See, and in part, this is why I really wanted to do this, and again for New Year's, so we could get a sense of, wow, we really do live in a very unusual and distinctive place. And maybe it'll make some of us also take a second look when we walk, when we wander New York or wander the Bronx. All right, let's go next.
This is on Marshall Parkway in Norwood.
On Marshall, yeah.
There are so many architectural treasures on both sides of the parkway. In my mind, it's also the most beautiful street in the whole city.
Marshall Parkway.
Yeah.
Well, the people who are at the Friends of Marshall Parkway, they would certainly agree with you. When I look at, and we have many corner sorts of buildings like this, when I look at them, I always wonder what those corner apartments actually look like inside.
I wonder
if they're diagonal.
I've wondered about that also. It's like, there's so many of them in the Bronx like this, that I can imagine that if in the summertime, if they open up the windows, all three windows, they might need air conditioning. If the wind's
I'm sure. So let's say it's Marshall and where, like near Bainbridge?
Yes, I believe it's almost by Bain. It's
204th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, tremendous. And this also, of course, tests my knowledge of the streets of the Bronx if you show me, so I can kind of determine where it is. All right, what do we got next? What do we got?
That's across the Marshall Parkway on the other side, which I would call Bedford Park. The example of the Art Deco architecture in the Bronx. That's just so great.
I chose those specifically to be back to back to show that here's a corner apartment that is totally different. And again, you could speculate about whether the people who live in there and those rooms are rounded, and those look more like living rooms than bedrooms. The others look like bedrooms.
Yeah. It would almost have to be, but it's again, it's such the amount of light that they get, and the view that they get over the parkway itself is got to be great.
Nothing on either side of them.
Yeah.
Is this sort of architecture distinctive to the borough of the Bronx?
Much more of it in the Bronx than other boroughs.
Really?
There is some Art Deco architecture in other boroughs, but not as much.
Not as
Definitely
much.
not as much.
By the way, we need to interject. Did you study architecture?
Not
as
at
well?
all. Not at
all. But you've done it from wandering New York.
I've learned to appreciate the different styles of architecture that's around.
You and you told us, and I alluded to it earlier, about your background with the subways. You had worked for, if I recall,
For New York City Transit. I'm retired from there. I worked there for 24 years and wrote a book about the subways also called The Route's Not Taken.
The Route's Not Taken.
Yeah.
All right, so people can look that up. All right, that doesn't mean we're stopping looking at pictures. Let's go. Oh, this was interesting, especially with the step streets we have in the Bronx.
Speaking of the subways, I took this from subway station, from the 231st Street station on the number 1 train. That it's the elevated subway is actually below the street level over. This is a block of.
Wait. Say that again. The
elevated sub. I took this from the platform.
Oh,
of the
it's below the street level that you're looking at
That's
across
correct.
the street. Well, now that's
and it's again showing how the topography of the Bronx, how everybody moves around with it, how people built to use it.
And so I'm trying to determine where that is. I mean, I thought I knew all the step streets in the Bronx.
This is west of Broadway. This is 200. I guess 232nd Street. This is a block above. The block above above 231st Street.
How interesting for you to have noticed that the level of the subway was actually below the street line that's across the street. And of course, given, for example, looking at the contrast versus what we saw, in the other photos, like that house in Schuylerville. Look, the artistry here is the graffiti, of course. Is that a schoolyard, or I guess it's the roof of another building?
The roof of the stores on Broadway.
Wow.
It's just that the people who built this apartment house took advantage of every last inch that they had up to the steps. I'm not sure if the steps were there before the building was there, but they definitely took advantage of everything they had there.
Go ahead.
And the artistry of the architect also.
Which almost is secondary to the rest of the picture. And I have to tell you, on TV you can never see what your audience is doing, but I could see the people in the studio here are like, wow, these are pretty good. All right, let's go to next. This, I have to tell you, this may be my favorite photo of them all. I just love this photograph.
This is 165th Street to the west of the Grand Concourse.
160, yes, that would make sense.
It's like about half a block over from the Bronx Museum of the Arts.
Right.
And there's another one. I just had to I had to stop and look at for a moment before I took the picture, and then also to wait till the traffic cleared
so you can get a good shot.
You have a nice clear shot of it.
But how could you not notice the angles? I mean, that of course the building itself has to be level. And then, of course, you have the diagonal, and then you have to associate that also with the diagonals of the fire escapes.
It's an amazing building.
I'm going to applaud this one. I love this photograph.
It's an amazing building. It's just I can't even imagine what they went through in planning it.
Number one, in planning it, and number two, in executing the plan to make sure that, like if you're playing marbles on the floor of your living room, the marbles don't roll somewhere.
Exactly. Quite right.
What a great photo. All right, keep going. We're ready for the next. Here we go. Another subway station.
This is the 219th Street station on the White Plains Road line. There's a number 2. If you look in the background, there's number 2. There's
all the way down there.
There's a number 2 train at the Gun Hill Road station, and it's again how I took this from the 225th Street station.
So you're looking at the 219th Street.
That's correct. Station. And it's just, again, typical of the topography of the Bronx, how the subway and the buildings were built to take advantage of it.
I appreciate that you had the number 6 train. Now, what was this? The number 2 line you said, and you're all over the Bronx. All right, let's keep going. We're going to run out of time soon, and we have. This is another one of those that must be out in the middle of Iowa somewhere.
But it's in Country Club.
Country Club. Wow. I mean, what's interesting to think about, somebody lives there and they're going to turn on TV and say, wait a minute, there's a picture of my, wait, is that your house? You do live next door to that? One of our crew members noticed that right away.
Every so often I'll hear from people who say that's my house and near my house. Yeah.
Justin, you know the people who live there? You do? That's really, really funny. All right.
I hope they'll mind.
It's too late now.
Yeah.
Where are we here?
And this is Wakefield.
Wakefield.
And this is, again, an example of the type of housing that you find virtually only in the Bronx. I took this from Bronx Boulevard, looking up, and
you've got I count three different types of architecture in one photo. All right, we got to move quick. I want to get them all in because some of the best are coming up. Keep going. Keep going. Let's go. This one, of course, is the mind blower of all time. I love this picture.
This is actually very much a pro subway ad because the photograph, I should say, because the only thing that's moving in this is the train.
Because the traffic is stopped.
There's a number 4 train crossing the Cross Bronx Expressway. I took this from the Grand Concourse looking westward.
Tremendous photo, and those of us in the Bronx would know what it's about. Yeah. All right, I think we have one more, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And I deliberately did this in contrast to show the range in our borough. This is the Bronx River.
This is the Bronx River from Alton Avenue, or from the roadway that becomes Alton Avenue.
Now, let's we can all applaud everybody about. Come on, where's my crew here? They're not going to applaud.
Thank you,
Joe. You. Do you play with the photos? I mean, in either Photoshop or use some other software?
I use Picasa for the pictures I use with the Pentax. I use Instagram for that. I try not to overdo it, but I know I do.
Most of the photos that we just saw were done kind of as you saw them and as you took them.
That's correct.
Joe Raskin, the Wanderer, the Wanderer of New York. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll have you before next New Year's or whatever. We'll have you next New Year's.
It'll be my pleasure, Gary.
Great. And we're going to keep watching. You can go to, where's the website?
WanderingNewYork.tumblr.com.
Wandering, N-E-W-Y-O-R-K.
Yeah, it's Wandering New York is one word, .tumblr without the E,
Tumblr,
.com.
All right. Great, Joe. Thank you for launching our new year here on Bronxtalk.
My pleasure, and Happy New Year, everyone.
And folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at bronxtalk@bronxnet.org. Put them on our Facebook page. Send us a tweet to @BronxTalk, and we'll read them on the air during a future edition of our program. We ask you to like the Bronxtalk Facebook page. You can check out our archives at BronxNet.org. Bronxtalk is on the lower right navigation bar. So thanks and Happy New Year to our producer, Jayla Jubetis. Our director is Brianna Roller. And really a happy and wonderful, healthy, peaceful New Year to you and yours. We will be back next week, as always, with more Bronxtalk.
Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you? Gary, financial aid forms. Biology homework, G. Picking a college, man. You and us go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos.